Welcome, everybody, to another episode of TBI TMI. Good morning, Maria. How are you today?
Good morning, Zach. You're looking so tanned and California right now. I hope some of our listeners can see you because I think you're the epitome of summer in a warm, fun state.
That's nice. I just need the long, blonde, sun-dripped locks to
Yeah.
match. Maybe I'll start wearing a wig. But I did go surfing this weekend,
Ooh.
and the water was very nice, and there were a lot of dolphins in the water, and usually they're migrating north or south or moving around, but this weekend they were just kind of playing, sort of
Oh.
performing for us. So it was kind of hard to beat, you know?
Yeah. I'm so envious.
Uh,
I just started reading this book. I think it's called like A Marriage at Sea. And basically, I guess it's a spoiler, but not really because they tell you within like the first 10 seconds, their boat gets like whacked by a whale. And then later in the my real life, someone was telling me like they just started seeing whales because here in Washington, there are a lot of like whales in the San Juans and even sometimes by where my parents or my mom lives. Over in Edmonds. So it's like I've really got like these beautiful sea creatures on my mind, and you're one of them.
that
Zipping around on your
was
surfboard
a good.
with your smooth body, including the the head there, your bald head.
It's actually just a bald cap. I have long, beautiful hair underneath it,
Right. You
but
put
I'm
that
just
on for
trying
the
to,
whole like
yeah.
year so you're ready for
Uh-huh.
your
I do about 6 hours of makeup, starting at 3 a.m. every morning.
I mean, I'm
Um,
sorry, you can't say that without me doing a shout out to your time. Was it in Batman? No, no. Star Wars?
Star Trek. Yeah,
Sorry.
I was
Tell our listeners it's
tell
time
our listeners,
to
our friends about
our friendly.
um, the doldrums of movie making and sitting in a makeup chair for 4 hours to have latex prosthetics added to your body so that you look like a humanoid alien. And yeah, I think I was on the show Star Trek circa 2008.
Yep, that sounds right.
Um, it was my first job after leaving New York and moving to Los Angeles.
Okay.
It was enlightening. Honestly, at that point, I should have been realizing that the movie industry is a terrible, terrible place based on that whole experience. But instead,
Mm-hmm.
I had the opposite reaction and wanted more. But basically, I was, working 17-hour days. 6 of those hours was in makeup. The other 11 hours was sitting around. And then with a bunch of like background actors who were walking around with acting books,
Right.
trying to rub elbows and shoulders or whatever other body parts they could with producers and movie people to
Never
extend their
happens, people.
career. It
Never.
was also a very like male environment, and I usually like at least a 50-50, if not like working in a more female environment. It's just a little too much grab ass for my tastes, which is why I
Totally.
only lasted for 2 days in spring football in high school.
Bullies. Um, but it is funny to think about because, I had my brush with that more when I was living in New York, actually. And like, just, I was doing extra work and I loved it because you got like so much free food and like, you really were just standing around shooting the breeze with people. And I enjoyed it. And at the same time, you're so right. Like at that time, it seemed like all of the crew, like people, the boom and the video camera, all men. There's a lot of men. But I do think it's changing. Although, what do I know? I've been out of it for at least
Yeah.
15.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, there's just I don't know, I just had a vision of or a memory of being the last people to eat because on set, the extras are the last people to get to eat on set. So like you watch hundreds of people in the main crew, producers and their jackass assistants and
Craft
everybody
services
like cutting the line and stuff. And then you're like, I've been sitting out here in the hot sun all day long, and
with my
maybe I'll
prosthetics
get like,
on.
yeah, with the prosthetics on, maybe I'll get the butt of a piece of tri-tip and like four green beans.
Aw.
Like tri-tip, green beans, mashed potatoes, and then like the what's the salad called with cabbage, iceberg, and carrots? Is there a name for that type of salad? I don't know. I don't know. That's just these are my memories.
All right.
Anyways, a long, long time ago. How are you today, Maria? We're talking about brain injuries, and I think just life in the movie industry is one long, enduring brain injury, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's funny though, because now you're saying that, I think I woke up in the middle of like a thought or a dream about something more early brain injury that I was going to say, but now I can't remember.
Because
So,
word finding, which is one of our topics for the day, right? Is it, would you say it's word finding or just losing your train of thought?
no, I call it word finding. And actually, through my older kids' school, I've gotten to know a woman who's actually a speech therapist, and speech therapy for so many of us is a big part of brain injury, like the cognitive elements. And she's told me like several things that word finding is actually called, and we should know those things, but we
What
don't.
are they?
Well, I don't know. But like one of the things that I know I do is I say, if I'm like meaning like let's go to a bakery, I might say like let's go to a bicycle. So it's like the first word or first letter is what I actually mean, but the way my brain is making the word come out is wrong. Or just, word finding. And honestly, one of the delights of being a therapist, and I guess being on this podcast with you and having many of our listeners be brain injured or have a family member that's brain injured, is that like the idea of masking, specifically when it comes to word finding, I just don't worry about. When I'm working with neurotypical people or around neurotypical people, I feel like I have to try really hard to not get the word, but like I'll find a way to explain what I mean without saying the word. You know what I mean? Whereas if I'm talking to Zach and our listeners who are kind of in this brain injury community, I'm much more likely to just like have a pregnant pause and then get to the thing that I'm saying.
Because we understand
Yeah.
your process a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, are there things you think, listening to you talk about word finding kind of reminds me of, well, I think I still do it, but life before brain injury. I had very much I wanted to be a writer. I was always kind of mulling over words in my head and what's the perfect way to say something and sort of creating a runway on which to land
Yeah.
before even opening my mouth. And it was actually quite exhausting. Uh, and if my memory serves me well, and I was going to say something, I was going to ask you the question of, is that a helpful exercise for those of us with brain injuries or the opposite effect? Because, just kind of thinking about it now, it's like I almost feel like it's more exhausting trying to work harder to come up with the right words rather than maybe sort of just treading water, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I getting to a question here, or what are
Well,
you
yeah,
thinking
I
is
mean, part of it's making me think of like, I think with manners when I was little or younger, and like I got tons of rides from people. I was a ride smooch. Is that the word?
mooch?
Mooch.
Mooch?
A ride mooch.
If you
There,
gave them kisses, then you
yeah,
would be a
that
bride
right
smooch.
there, smooch mooch. I think that is, she would have the speech therapist, we got to have her on, but a speech
Yeah.
therapist would have the term for that because that's even part of it. Because my
What
brain,
a ride mooch is? Or
no, saying smooch instead of mooch.
right.
Anyway,
Okay.
um, but back to what I'm thinking, which is that like I would prepare in my brain, I'd say over and over again, like, thanks for the ride, Mr. Buh Buh Buh. And I would have that like in my head to say. And I would be practicing it while I was sitting there waiting to get out of the car. And so in that way I can kind of relate in, I mean, obviously very different. It sounds like you were like word crafting and, designing, and I was just nervous um, to talk to an older man. But I do think that on the one hand, there's this such a fine line for people like us and our listeners with head injuries where like you are really gauging how much energy does something take. And so like I always try to remind people like if you're anxious and you're thinking about a worry, that's taking up so much of your energy and that is going to make you feel fatigued later, even more so than you already would. So in a way, like thinking of how to do something right or perfect, and even like in a language way, I wonder if that would be quite tiring cognitively. Like you're using the juice you have.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And to circle back to, some of our listeners being curious about being brain injured with and dating, like I remember kind of this sort of overexhaustion from trying to think of the perfect thing to say to some
Mm,
prospective date when really just hello and listening is probably the best tactic you can take. At least probably just talking to anybody new, really, let alone dating. Right? That exhaustion with trying to come up with the perfect thing to say is very real, and I can identify with that. I did want to say though that, my wife and one of my closest friends are two of the smarter people I know, and they are guilty of malapropisms all the time. And they combine phrases, and it's hilarious and
mm,
creative, and I think
mhm.
makes existence more fun. And I have a couple because my friend's wife will send me his, and then I will send her my wife's. And like one of them was that he was telling her she was beautiful and that you're the ball of the gown with but he meant the bell of the ball. And then like my wife at one point, I don't remember what we were talking about, but she was saying something about when the ball goes down, and she was combining the phrases when the ship goes down or you drop the ball.
Oh,
And on some levels I almost feel like, we in trying to look at things through the lens of like how do we make this brain injury our superpower in a
yeah,
way. I think kind of the word finding or the pauses and conversation. This is just another way to sort of maybe empower yourself to think of new ways to say things
sure.
or make it a little more fun. And because nobody's saying the right thing all the time. Like look at all the stupid people who say all the stupid things.
Well, I think the other thing is with the dating element too, frequently both myself, but also people I work with that have brain injuries, we sometimes are unfiltered in our speech, meaning we could go on and on and on about pretty much anything. And so when you are dating, there needs to be some like internal breaks or internal stops for that oversharing. Partially because you want people to have room to get to know you more, and you need to decide are they worthy of getting to know me more? Also, because it in our culture is considered kind or rude to not give other people room to speak. And I know this is something I continue to work on, that if I am in a group setting, oftentimes I can really take over and blab the whole time. And so I have to give other people space to enter the conversation. And then even like when I was in grad school, I used to write on my pieces of paper, like, don't say anything. don't don't speak, just listen. And I think with dating, sometimes you can both remove some stress by saying, like, I will share blank, kind of like I'll share a little bit, but I'm really going to focus on watching the person I'm with, their mouth move, and really try to hear the words they're saying. Like, let the words kind of echo in my head of what they're saying, because that is a really good practice in dating, to both be a good listener, be interested, and to share commonalities. So if Zach is saying, like, oh, I went surfing this weekend, I might be thinking, well, I don't know anything about surfing. And then, but if I interrupt and say, well, I don't know anything about surfing, and he didn't even get to say and blah blah about dolphins, where maybe I can say, oh, once I was at this restaurant in Los Angeles, that's really, they have a famous Taco Tuesdays, it's called Duke's, and I saw dolphins. And then Zach can say, that's actually where I went after I surfed that day. What a coincidence. Now we're having like this moment. But if I just take off or interrupt, which again, I am not saying I'm good at this. I am an interrupter. I am an oversharer. But I think when we're looking through the lens of dating and someone meeting us, we are more than just an oversharer as a brain injured person. We can be a good listener, and we have interesting things to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. I think on the heels of that, there's a few places to go because I'm sort of, some of the tactical listening I've studied is sort of in opportunities of like negotiation where you're an active listener and then you're reciting back what you heard to that person so that they know they've felt heard, and you're kind of developing sort of a common ground on which to state your case. But then the other thing I was thinking, which we've talked about a little bit, is, when you are listening, sometimes it can be overwhelming. And it's almost like having an empty water cup and somebody is filling your cup with their information, and then it just pours over because your cup can only take so much information. And I think that's where I'm kind of wondering if there are tools or tips we can help our listeners and ourselves with when we might feel that cup starting to overflow with information.
Well, I think the first thing to really consider in any situation with all people is our number one job, even as a parent, even as a partner, is to take care of ourselves. And for some of us in the moment, what that means is putting our feet on the floor, feeling settled onto the ground, even if we had a horrible night's sleep, even if someone at the grocery store was really mean to us, even if our spouse said they were going to get more cream and they didn't. All of those things we can feel, but if we don't feel connected to our self and our sense of foundation and like stability, then we're gonna fly off. And so grounding yourself before you go into conversations with people, I think is a really smart thing to do. Or even in the moment, like right now, I have my feet on the floor. I'm attempting, my hands keep moving, but I am attempting to put my hands on my legs and like just feel a little bit more stabilized. So that's one thing. And then having a breath, like breathing a little bit. And so I'm going into this podcast recording today as Maria, who's coming in to hear what Zach's saying and coming in to hear what our listener call is saying. But overall, like if I just come in totally empty cup with no foundation and no connection to my own need for stability, then it's very easy to get so wrapped up in everything that's being said and everything that is happening outside of me that it is really overwhelming and that cup gets full faster,
Mm,
right? It's not our jobs to hear every little detail that everyone says. That's not possible. Most people are hearing one third of what the other person is saying. And part of
right.
that's like a protective thing, I believe. So it's like allow yourself to be there and listen. But if you are like, oh, what lovely eyes Zach has, or you're hearing him talking and even though the time has passed, like, hey, I'm still really thinking about how Jen, your spouse, am I allowed to say her name? Uh-oh.
Totally. Yeah.
Tyler, shit. Oh, shoot. Anyway. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but it's like I am still thinking, a part of my brain is actually still saying ball dropped? No. Was that the word?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So like there is a part of me that
When the
as
ball goes down.
ball goes down, like even as this person talking about myself and listening to the new information you're bringing, for whatever reason, I dog eared that. And even people that don't have brain injuries do that. And so I could say back, like, hey, you mentioned earlier something that your spouse said about the ball. Will you remind me that? Because I think that's really funny. I mean, that's so interesting. But what was it again?
You're asking me, when the ball goes down?
Yeah. No, I'm just kind of saying as an example. Yeah, but like when the
Right.
ball goes down. I do like that. That's interesting and you're right. Like why are there such firm boundaries on these age-old sayings? I like the new
Yeah.
iterations that people are coming up with and I think we should have that.
Well,
So
kind of reminds me, honestly, of I don't know if you've seen this David Bowie documentary that came out a couple years ago, where it was sort of all of this interview audio and then these visuals, and it was kind of going into his songwriting practices where he had these journals of like these words that he loved, and he would just combine them together. And I mean, he's my favorite artist. I think he's an alien and supernatural, and
yeah.
love him to the depths of the universe. So I just think it's kind of almost like a way to celebrate the difference, the evolution, the change, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna say something else and I forgot because I'm a human and
You're a human with a
I have
brain.
a brain injury.
There you go.
I was also gonna say, because I've had a couple instances where in the last couple of months, where I'm kind of talking to strangers about myself and sort of having date-like interactions with people. And I think one thing that really helped me navigate those conversations was some positive self-talk
Mm-hmm.
prior, which is something that I started doing honestly when I was taking my CPA exams,
Mm.
because I was like basically looking in the mirror and saying like, I love you, like I believe in you, I
Hmm.
am loved,
Yes.
like I'm gonna do my best and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And it helped me calm myself down before those exams.
Yeah.
I think also like realistic goal setting in these more recent conversations where it was like I'm gonna answer to the best of my ability. My objective here is to present myself in a positive light,
Yeah.
not
Totally.
necessarily with the goal of like they're going to give me $1 million and all my problems are going to go away. And so I do think, you know, I know we're sort of going in different directions, but I think when you're kind of in a situation and you're talking to new people, and like my kids are job hunting right now, and one of them is super social, but he's talked to me about not being good at networking. And I think one thing I've tried to tell him is, like set yourself up for success. Be around people that have similar interests and, just say hello. And I think I need to hammer home a little bit more of like, we love you, love yourself. Like, you don't have to get a job with this one conversation, but you're just meeting people.
Right.
And maybe like set yourself up for like incremental goals that feel within your grasp.
Yeah, and like you said, those phrases, those affirmations uh are so powerful. I mean, I think whether it's someone trying to do something new, like get a job, like your son, or someone that's setting out to go dating, whatever it can be. I'm just thinking as you're saying that, I guess it was like 10 years ago, but again, in grad school, one of my classmates, sort of at the end of the school year, was like, she said in front of the class, like, and Maria, you're so lovable. And I just thought, I would have never thought of that. I don't see myself that way. And it's just been such a nice thing to have in my head when I am having a day or feeling quite down on myself. And I had a friend who's just started getting back into the dating pool say she was told by someone to remind herself, like, I am the prize. And these things that maybe seem so, you know, over the top confident, they're important because our, again, for the millionth time, our brains are looking for the negative, and they're
Right.
telling us, oh, one person said you didn't do that well, and so that's all you ever think about for the next 6 years is how someone said, you know, you're bad at podcasting or whatever. So I mean, I just think like there is a bit of a circle to me in this moment. One, it's like the expectation for yourself to say, my cup has been dumped out. Now I'm going to listen to Zach and let that whole cup fill, and it's going to overflow. And then I'm doing something wrong. You're not doing something wrong. That's okay. That's normal. You're hearing what you hear. You can ask questions. Like, all of that is okay. And we put so much pressure on ourselves to behave and be the best and blah blah blah, when really, like, you're lovable, you're the prize, you're a great asset to the work you do. And reminding yourself that, because oftentimes other people don't.
Yeah. I mean, I think another trick to trick your brain out of the negative self-talk is almost, how would you describe your best friend to a stranger?
Totally.
And then put yourself in that position,
Yes.
and think about yourself as your best friend or
Yeah.
somebody you love, and
Right.
use some of those descriptors. Um, because I think you and I both have bonded at times about our own self-talk,
Yeah.
and how we struggle with being positive about who we are as a
Right.
result of, whatever family dynamics or, our career pursuits or,
Our head
I think both
is.
our head injuries. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's hard to remain positive when there's so much rejection out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this like sociopathic angle of like everyone else is wrong, but uh, I don't know that you and I or you and I lean that direction, or
Think so.
uh,
I mean, Zach, one thing
we're
we
not trying to attract those people with this podcast either.
well, and I think for our listeners, I would be really interested what thoughts and comments or questions are kind of coming up as we're describing this, because I know we're not alone. I know that so many of our listeners are struggling with similar things, and so I hope if you are, you'll pop something in the chat. Remember, you can always give us a call and leave a question or comment on our voicemail, which I'll put the number up here. Yeah, but leaving a comment too is really helpful because that just shows us if this is going in the right direction. And
Right.
yeah, but I do think it's super important, and I'm glad we were led here.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think this is a good opportunity to transition to an email we received.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna cut that out. So um,
But we're not going to cut
we're
that.
gonna cut. Yeah. I can't do the other parts of it. I can just do the cutting. You can do the.
Obviously did not watch enough Full House. 'Cause-
No, that show sucks.
Hey,
Um,
watch it.
let's talk. We're gonna transition. This is a show about how Full House sucks. Um,
It's not true.
anyways,
This is, please, again, do not listen to what the bald man says.
uh, um, we did receive an email from a listener named Anne, who said her daughter wants to play soccer, but she is very worried about concussions and brain injuries. What steps can they take to reduce her daughter's risk? And what signs should they watch out for if she does, in fact, hit her head? Thank
Mm.
you, Anne, for that thoughtful question. Uh,
So interesting because I think we had a caller a couple weeks ago who had also been wondering post concussion about going back to soccer
right.
and kind of avoiding soccer, in fact, but then getting some protective, um, was it headgear that
It
they
was, yeah, it was headgear. I think it was a headband that
banned,
she talked
right?
about. Unfortunately, our audio cut out a little bit, so we apologize to our listeners
Hmm.
who listened to that episode. I do think soccer is a kind of under the radar contributor to a lot of head injuries. I know I've heard
Oh, I
stuff
don't think it's
about
under the radar.
oh, you think it's above radar now?
Well, because I think there's the heading the ball, is that what they call it?
Right.
That
Yeah.
is, repetitive behavior that could really impact your head. Yeah. This is sports are not really my strength. However, I do think that both in schools and on the field, it seems like people are making strides towards having that be a safer place. But I think it's also like talk to your kid. That would be the start, in my opinion, is like explain to them people get head injuries. This is one of the reasons why. Being aggressive on the field is great, but these are some things you might consider. And also, I would imagine in Seattle, we have quite a hierarchy of soccer. And so there's like playing just the rec league, and then there's playing like the select league, and then there's playing like the we're going to Paris and we're in middle school league. And so it's like, is this something she's doing, her child is wanting to do for exercise and for fun? Or is this like, I'm trying to get a college scholarship? Because if it's for exercise and fun, maybe allow yourself to have it be that and recognize you don't have to dive in for a ball. You don't have to be putting yourself at risk. Whereas,
Yeah. So you're saying search for a more leisurely league that's not so competitive. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, again, I'm not huge and well versed in the world of sport, but
But do
I
your kids, I mean, your oldest is 7,
yeah, but he's still just on more like local stuff, not
right? But I think our listeners kind of wonder. I think like, maybe we should ask, maybe we should email back about what age she's referring to for her daughter. But having played sports from like 5 years old on, I think it's sort of like in the 10 years old range. I feel that it starts to get a little more competitive, 10 to 13. Um, and so I wonder if, talking to your oldest about head injuries, is that just going to like completely go over his head? Does he understand like if you hit your head, it could, have you ever talked to him about that?
oh yeah, we talk about it a lot.
And
Um,
does he understand, do you think?
I mean, I don't try to like instill fear or anything like that with him as far as head injury goes, but like with a bike, I'm very strict about like always, or a scooter, any kind of thing like that, always having a helmet on. I don't really ride bikes where the rest of my family does, just because that is a place where I hear so many injuries taking place is biking. And so my kids often will ask about that. And if we're on like a vacation, I'll rent a bike to go on like a sand thing or something that I feel really safe in. But I guess part of what I'm saying is like, I think if your child's goal in life is to do something with sports and they know that from a young age, then that's important to talk about and to think about. But if your child is sort of saying there are a lot of different things that they're interested in and that's one of them and they want to try it, probably, just being mindful of like, where are we deciding as a family or as the parent to this kid, where is our energy going? And maybe it's always important to be talking about, because I would guess there's a lot of, I know with like football in the US. I don't know. I've lost the plot here, but
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, I definitely think talking to your kid about sort of the potential for injury is important. I do want to touch a little bit on, if God forbid your 7 to 10 to 13-year-old does get a head injury, what are the signs of that? I mean, other than witnessing it, are there for like a preteen kid or elementary school kid, like, are there indicators of a head injury that are easily overlooked?
I don't know how easily overlooked. I think that you would probably notice a change in their behavior. Headaches are quite common for head injury, especially early days of sort of head injury. Things like a change in mood, like a pretty severe change in mood, perhaps a lot more agitation or anger. Those would be signs, especially if they're kind of out of the blue. Fatigue showing up more, things of that nature, I would be looking for if I was having concerns.
Okay. All right. So, everyone, if you have sports questions, ask Maria.
No, I want to be
Uh,
a little bit more clear too, because I think I like I said, I kind of lost the plot. But to be specific, I just think that, and again, you're right. I'm not a sports gal, but
the use of the term sports gal, we've realized you are not a sports gal.
as far as families go, kind of, and your child, trying to understand what their intention is with a sport, and from there making decisions. How could it hurt to have a protective headband or a protective helmet on? I don't see how that could hurt anyone. And why wear it only at the game instead of at practice too? So I think like just having those be a part of your repertoire, if you know that that could help. And again, I think that would be across the board if it were a choice. And just saying, like, unfortunately, our brains are not like our arms. If you break your arm, it's gonna heal probably back to how it pretty much was. If you break your head and you have a head injury, or even if you don't break your head but you have a head injury, it is going to probably cause problems that are going to be there for a long time. And so, whatever way and at whatever age it feels appropriate to have a discussion like that, I don't think it's harmful. And I don't think you need to scare and show pictures of like, this is what happens if you run too fast and don't stop at the crosswalk and, whatever happens. It's like, no, but I think kids are smart and they get it. And, it's just opportunity to be more mindful.
Yeah. I haven't thought about this in years, but when I was about 8 years old, I had a bike accident and ran into a mailbox and was bleeding and from my face. I think I lost a tooth or something. And after that, I had to wear a BMX helmet to ride my bike and was fully head covered,
Yeah.
sweating my little chubby face off.
Yeah.
But I think I wore that for like 7 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, talk to your kids, right? Something like that.
Something like that.
Thank you, Anne, for emailing us that question. It was, I think, informative for us to talk about and hopefully for our listeners to hear as well. Would you agree, Maria?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so interesting because once you have a head injury, there is so much more cushioning and awareness around your head and around what you're willing to put your head in danger with. And sometimes I know there was a period where I would wear a helmet when I was in a car with people.
Right, you mentioned that. Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like it's up to you, but it's whatever is making you feel safer. And then also just noticing like prevention, especially with these little brains, is absolutely something to consider.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Maria, for your time today. And we talked a little bit about word finding and the creativity that comes from adjoining phrases and words that might not be, you know, idiomatic or old sayings, because they're new sayings, and sort of self-talk, positive self-talk when you're having conversations with new people, and a little bit about preparing your kids for sports and the possibility for head injuries. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We're so grateful to have you be a part of these conversations, and we're excited to be sharing them with you. We're going to be covering a new topic related to TBIs each week, going over listener submitted calls from
Emails.
real life or emails. We'll be releasing episodes every Tuesday, so please subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of these fun and important conversations.
Yes, hit
What do you
that.
have to
Yeah.
say?
Yes, hit that subscribe button on our Spotify, our at some point Apple Podcast, and absolutely YouTube.
Yeah, and then we're figuring out LinkedIn too. What else? We'll be in the yellow pages any day now.
We're on Instagram,
Penny Saver.
TikTok. Be our friend on TikTok. Nobody's watching us over there at
We're
all.
gonna start sending mailers out in the mail with your Arby's coupons.
Granny and Grandpa over here.
Um, the content in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, not professional advice. We, as the host, are not liable for how our listeners use this information. If you need more support, please contact a therapist or medical provider. If you're having suicidal thoughts, please text 988 for support. Maria, thank you so much for your time this morning. Always a
Thank
pleasure
you,
to see you.
Zachary, Milton, and Ted. Thanks,
What? What
Zachary,
is that?
Milton, and Ted.
What is that?
Zachary, Milton, and Ted.
Is
It's a
that a,
mystery.
it's a what?
It's a mystery. It's your new nickname.
Okay. All right, everybody, solve that mystery. Help us solve that mystery. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you. Bye now.